Namaste, aloha. Welcome to the Nectar of Devotion. My name is Janapati Das. Thank you very much for tuning in. And let me offer my respects to you, offering my obeisances to my spiritual master and to my spiritual grandfather. Let us chant some as instructed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaurakaru Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prasthayate Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaurakaru Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prasthayate Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Vasudeva Gaura Haribol Namasita Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gorakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prasthayate Raja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So we are reading from the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, translated and purported upon by my spiritual grandfather, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We had started chapter 1, entitled The Characteristics of Pure Devotional Service. And we are at a chapter entitled Krishna Consciousness is All Auspicious. Srila Rupa Goswami has given a definition of auspiciousness. He says that actual auspiciousness means welfare activities for all the people of the world. So, we are seeking ways and means, paths, different kinds of ideas to try to satisfy or help the disenfranchised people of the world, welfare activities for the world. How do we feed people? How do we help war-torn areas? How do we solve differences? And we have many different things that we've tried, many organizations. The United Nations was created to create peace in the world, but yet there has been no peace. But Srila Rupa Goswami has given the definition of auspiciousness, that actual auspiciousness means welfare activities for all the people of the world. But we've tried so many welfare activities of the world, but we have not tried Krishna consciousness, which is the greatest welfare, the only welfare that will actually help the living entities in this world. There is even an attempt in the form of the United Nations for World Help Activity. At the present moment, groups of people are engaged in welfare activities in terms of society, community, or nation. There is even an attempt in the form of the United Nations for World Help Activity. But due to the shortcomings of limited national activities, such a general mass welfare program for the whole world is not practically possible. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is so nice that it can render the highest benefit to the entire human race. Everyone can be attracted by this movement, and everyone can feel the result. So there's this saying, well, it's not exactly a perfect saying, but you can give a man a fish, or you can teach him how to fish. Or you can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, and teach him how to fish and feed him for the rest of his life. This is the way that, we can have activities that feed people daily or help people. But the material benefit is not a way to really alleviate. It may be a way to temporarily alleviate problems in the material world, but it does not actually deal with the spirit soul or the spiritual aspect of ourselves. So Krishna consciousness is actually a way that will help. The Krishna consciousness movement is so nice that it can render the highest benefit to the entire human race. Everyone can be attracted by this movement, and everyone can feel the result. Just by coming to chanting, people can feel the burden of life fall on them. And even if they don't have a lot materially, they are relieved of their fear of anxiety, of death, and hopelessness. Because there are countries that actually have great wealth, like the United States. Yet we have extreme problems. We have high suicide rates, drug problems, unhappiness, anger, mass anger, violence. Everyone can be attracted by this movement, and everyone can feel the result. Therefore, Rupa Goswami and other learned scholars agree that a broad propaganda program for the Krishna consciousness movement of devotional service all over the world. It's the highest humanitarian welfare activity. So above the United Nations, above USAID or anything that helps people materially, the greatest thing that you can do is to teach people about who they are and what the purpose of their life is. Because beyond this body, we may live a very comfortable life in this body, but we have to be kicked out at the time of death, and we don't know where we're going to go. We don't even know that we're not this body, and therefore we're acting under the modes of material nature and under the dictation of the material energy, accruing karma and accruing our future life in this world. How the Krishna consciousness movement can attract the attention of the whole world, and how each and every man can feel pleasure in this Krishna consciousness is stated in the Padma Purana as follows. A person who is engaged in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is to be understood to be doing the best service to the whole world and to be pleasing everyone in the world. In addition to human society, he is pleasing even the trees and animals because they also become attracted by such a movement. It's a very easy process. Sometimes we feel like, how can I help people? How can I don't have money to give people. I don't have the mobility to activate a mass movement to try to alleviate this great suffering. But I can use my voice to chant Krishna's names. I can use my intelligence and my ability to help other people and spread Krishna consciousness around. I can go out in the park and chant, and everybody there, all the living entities in human bodies, trees bodies, insect bodies, grass bodies, are all benefited. So it is said that like the food goes to the stomach and the stomach spreads to the rest of the body, so similarly the activities done in Krishna consciousness is benefiting the whole world. It is medicine for the whole world, even if people can't necessarily feel the effect. It is affecting them. In addition to human society, he is pleasing even the trees and animals because they also become attracted by such a movement. A practical example of this was shown by Lord Chaitanya when he was traveling through the forest of Jharkhand in central India for spreading his Sankirtan movement. The tigers and the elephants, the deer, and all the other wild animals joined him and were participating in their own ways by dancing and chanting Hare Krishna. It's a great story. Furthermore, a person engaged in Krishna consciousness, acting in devotional service, can develop all the good qualities that are generally found in the demigods. So one does not have to individually or independently try to strive for so many great qualities. Oftentimes we think of there are so many factors to do to help people in the world that we got to, save the trees. We've got to, by joining this earth group, we've got to protect, give women's rights, or we have to help the environment or help people with cancer by donating to the Cancer Society. So we have to do all these individual things. Similarly, we have to, have a good diet. We have to exercise every day. We have to do all these things and take all these vitamins. But why do we do it? We do it because we want to look good. We want to feel good, which is okay. But ultimately, the ultimate goal means why. Why are we doing that? Because this body will crap out eventually. Why do we do it? We have it live a good life, I guess, yes, which is also a good thing, but to be able to be in good service to our spiritual master and to Krishna. So it is said, though, that a person engaging in these activities, all they have to do is to engage in the service of Krishna, and all the good qualities come naturally. So it's not something that we have to strive for individually, abstaining from these kinds of things because it's bad, and we're trying to be a renunciate, like Arjuna was trying to be with Krishna. Krishna was just like, you don't need to go off to the forest to be a renunciate. You can be a true renunciate by surrendering your will to my will. My will is that you fight this battle and you do your duty as a warrior. So everybody has an interesting way. So just like demigods have good qualities, a person can be a deva, which is a demigod, like a demigod. A devotee is said to be like a deva. It is said by Shukadev Goswami in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 18th chapter, 12th verse, "My dear king, persons who have unflinching faith in Krishna are without, flinching. You flinch, right? You're like, somebody scares you, but whew, it's not, no deferring, no flicking, no, this is what I'm doing. Very determined. Unflinching faith, determination and faith in Krishna are without any duplicity can develop all the good qualities of the demigods. On account of a devotee's high grade of Krishna consciousness, even the demigods like to live with him, and therefore can be understood that the qualities of the demigods have developed within his body. On the other hand, a person who is not in Krishna consciousness has no good qualities. Wow, what a statement is that. A person who is not doing things for Krishna. They may have all the check boxes. They have the money, they have the good looks, they have the intelligence, they have the ability to be controlled and determined to do what they need to do. They may even be in kind of a mode of goodness type of person, but if they're not doing it for God, if they're not doing it for Krishna, they have really no good qualities, because everything is useless. They're all zeros, just like my spiritual master says. You can have so many abilities in this life, but those things are like zeros without Krishna. Krishna is the one. You put the Krishna in the front, and you have all these assets you can use for Krishna. It's very valuable. But if you take Krishna out of the picture, you have no one in the front. So it's just a bunch of zeros. It doesn't matter whether you're good looking. It doesn't matter what kind of karma you have, what intelligence you have, what abilities, what status, if you have a beautiful wife and wonderful children. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Without God, there is no good qualities. He may be high educated from the academic point of view, but in the actual field of his activities, he can be seen to be baser than the animals. So oftentimes these people are very intelligent. They may be good people, but they have animalistic tendencies to try to enjoy and stimulate their body into some kind of enjoyment for themselves. So they don't put God up there. They don't put Krishna as the means by which we offer our abilities to. Even though a person is, even though a person is highly educated academically, if he cannot go beyond the sphere of mental activities, then he is sure to perform only material activities. Material activities, and thus remain impure. So you can't get beyond the sphere of this mental thing, and he's just going to be using his mental capacity to try to improve his physical enjoyments for his own pleasure. There are so many persons in the modern world who have been highly educated in the materialistic universities, but it is seen that they cannot take up the movement of Krishna consciousness and develop the high qualities of the demigods. So, once again, the abilities that we learn and we gather in this material world are by the mercy of Krishna and by our karmic reactions. If we do not use those in Krishna consciousness, then it is a waste of time. So therefore, there is no qualification. You don't need to be highly educated to be a devotee of Krishna. You don't need to have all these things. You can be a beggar in the street and be a great saint. Or you could be a wealthy merchant or wealthy, and you utilize it for Krishna, you could be a saint too. But it's not because of what you have, it's about your consciousness, the Krishna consciousness. For example, a Krishna conscious boy, even if he is not very well educated by the university standard, can immediately give up all illicit sex life, gambling, meat eating, and intoxication, whereas those who are not in Krishna consciousness, although very highly educated, are often drunkards, meat eaters, sex mongers, and gamblers. Yes, those are the four regulative principles, and then they themselves, you could be not doing that and still not be a devotee of Krishna because of your consciousness. So these things are given by our spiritual master to regulate, or to stay away, the four regulative principles, because they interfere with our ability of keeping our mind focused on Krishna. So we don't engage in illicit sex life unless it's with our wife or husband. We don't gamble because it's distressing to the mind. We don't engage in meat eating because it pollutes our consciousness and it's displeasing to Krishna and to our spiritual master. We don't get intoxications, which also interfere with our consciousness. These are practical proofs of how a Krishna conscious person becomes highly developed in good qualities, whereas a person who is not in Krishna consciousness cannot do so. We experience that even a young boy in Krishna consciousness is unattached to cinemas, nightclubs, naked dance shows, restaurants, liquor shops, etc. He becomes completely freed. He saves his valuable time from being extravagantly spent in the way of smoking, drinking, attending the theater, and dancing. Except for dancing Haribo. Yeah. So a lot of these things are just distractions and just diversions to us using our time in a way that we can stay focused on Krishna and utilize our time and effort in Krishna consciousness. One who is not in Krishna consciousness usually cannot sit silently for even half an hour. The yoga system teaches that if you become silent, you will realize that you are God. This system may be all right for materialistic persons, but how long will they be able to keep themselves silent? So we have these Buddhist, sort of Zen Buddhist zazen, which is a sitting posture. You're supposed to sit for a very long time and, I don't know, meditate on nothing or something. And then they have these guys that go around and whack you if you're kind of falling asleep or, you know, like. It's a funny story because my spiritual master would say that they had these group of the Zen Buddhist monastery below where they had the devotees in this, I guess it was in Hawaii or something, maybe, or California, and they would go and they would sit in their zazen, and the teachers would hit them with sticks and stuff, and the devotees of Krishna would be up chanting and engaging and offering prasadam and eating prasadam, and they would go like, oh, after they sat in their zazen for a while, let's go over to the Hare Krishna thing, just like, you know, let's have fun, you know. It is fun, you know, but we're not like engaging in a hedonistic, like this is what Bhaktivedanta here is talking about. It's not like, oh, I'm going out and just enjoying myself for myself. We're doing it for Krishna. One who is not in Krishna consciousness usually cannot say, okay, so I read that. This system may be all right for materialistic persons, but how long will they be able to keep themselves silent? Artificially, they may sit down for so-called meditation, but immediately after the yogic performance, they will engage themselves again in such activities as illicit sex life, gambling, meat eating, and many other nonsensical things, because they have not really cleaned their heart with the chanting of Krishna's name. So the desire to enjoy is not really gone. The guilt might be there, and which is sort of reminds me of the Catholic faith, where people go and they spend a week engaging in nonsensical activities like this, meat eating, drinking, illicit sex, gambling, whatever they might be, and then at the end of the week I got to be purified, so I go to church and I confess to the priest and wipe my sins, on my bloody sins on on Jesus Christ, you know, and say, Jesus, oh, please forgive me. You know, I'll just wipe my sins on you, and then they go back and they're purified. They go back and they do the next thing. So it's this sort of mukti bhukti witches of allurement, of attachment, desire, material sense enjoyment, and renunciation back and forth. But there's no progress really ever made. And Jesus doesn't take lightly, Krishna doesn't take lightly to have his devotees constantly used so people could just wipe their sins on them. Jesus Christ, of course, was offering to do anything to teach people love for God, to teach bhakti, even to sacrifice himself. And he can purify you if people surrender to the devotee of Krishna. But Krishna is not happy with people who constantly use Jesus Christ as their doormat. But a Krishna conscious person gradually elevates himself without endeavoring for the so-called silent meditation. Simply because he is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he automatically gives up all this nonsense, and develops a high character. One develops the highest character by becoming a pure devotee of Krishna. The conclusion is that no one can truly have any good qualities if he is lacking Krishna consciousness. Happiness in Krishna consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami has analyzed. So Srila Rupa Goswami, of course, is the author and one of the 6 Goswamis, his direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he wrote this, and this is Srila Rupa Goswami has analyzed the different sources of happiness. He has divided happiness into 3 categories, which are 1. Happiness derived from material enjoyment. 2. Happiness derived by identifying oneself with the Supreme Brahman. And 3. Happiness derived from Krishna consciousness. So these are 3 very different kinds of happiness. The happiness derived from material enjoyment is very small and fleeting. So we do get, it's not to say that sex life or enjoying in the material world does not bring about some kind of happiness and temporary satisfaction, but it's very fleeting. And then we have the emerging into the Brahman effulgence, or becoming one with the Supreme Brahman, or the effulgence of Krishna. This pleasure is much, much, much more significant than material enjoyment. But the highest is, of course, the happiness from Krishna consciousness. And it's actually been said that the enjoyment of material life is like water in a hoof print compared to the ocean of merging into Krishna, merging into the Brahma Jyoti. But the enjoyment, the happiness derived from merging into the Brahman effulgence is like a hoof print of water compared to the ocean of Krishna consciousness. In the Tantra Shastra, Lord Shiva speaks to his wife, Shati, in this way: "My dear wife, a person who has surrendered himself at the lotus feet of Govinda," is the name of Krishna, Govinda, the name of the Lord, "and who has thus developed pure Krishna consciousness, can be very easily awarded all the perfections desired by the impersonalist. And beyond this, he can enjoy the happiness achieved by the pure devotees." So everything that everyone strives for in lower forms of happiness, material enjoyment, happiness from merging into the Brahman effulgence, this is what Bhaktivedanta, or Lord Shiva, of course, is just saying to his wife, that it's all achieved anyway, but the happiness that is achieved by this direct service to Krishna and Bhakti Yoga is the only real desire that the devotee wants. Like, he wants the love of Krishna. Happiness derived from pure devotional service is the highest because it is eternal. But the happiness derived from material perfection or understanding one to be Brahman is inferior because it is temporary. So there is happiness there, but it is not a lasting happiness what we strive for in the material world, because we think, oh, we are material, we are this body, therefore my greatest happiness will be in trying to seek out and find the greatest happiness in this material world of sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever it might be. And it's very disappointing. more often than not, we spend our times trying to strive for these things, or even just try. If we get it, it's for alleviating our great suffering. And then we're like at the end of the life, we're like Freddie Prinze Jr., who was like had everything material and was like asking his manager, "Is this all there is to life?" The manager was thinking, "Yeah, man. I mean, you got it all. You're living the high life." And the guy shot himself because he was just realizing that this just was not satisfying. So there is some happiness. No one can deny the fact that if you have sex, it's enjoyable. It makes you happy. If you have, drink a beer or something, that sometimes makes you happy, but it's not lasting. It's not, and sometimes it has a double-edged sword. It's like get some happiness, but then you become an alcoholic, and then you have to deal with that whole thing. You end up selling, or you're a gambler or whatever. You get enjoyments from winning a little bit, but then you end up selling your house and losing your wife and your kids because you've stolen everything out of their house. So, there's always two sides to this. Happiness derived from, there is no preventing one's falling down from material happiness. And there is even every chance of falling down from the spiritual happiness derived out of identifying oneself with the impersonal Brahman. Yes. So that's what I was saying. Material happiness has this sort of downside, but even the greater enjoyment of merging into the Brahman is a temporary thing, because you go and you enjoy that experience, but then you have to come down. Oftentimes impersonalists come down, they think they are that, they are God, and they come back and they, do their things in the material world. And so it has been seen that great Mayavadi impersonalist sannyasis, very highly educated and almost realized souls, may sometimes take to political activities or to social welfare activities. Yes, they come down, they think they feel like they have to, because the living entity, the living Jiva Atma, has to have a loving relationship with God. That is a truly ultimate satisfying goal. But if you're an impersonalist, you think, if I become God, there's no relationship. So I still have that desire to be loved, and love somebody. So I come down and I'm thinking I'm God, but then I feel like I need to still be loving. So what do these impersonalist gurus do? They open charities, they do welfare activities, or worse yet, they start engaging in sexual activities with their disciples, because they think, well, I'm God anyways, but I want to be loved, so I'll just sleep around with all my disciples, or my disciple, or the men, or the children, or animals, or whatever it might be. It gets really perverted. So, and that's all because the active relationship that one has with Krishna is not fulfilled. It's not, the bhakta, the devotee of Krishna, is satisfied by the relationship of Krishna only. Everything else is insubstantial. If Krishna is not that one in the beginning of all the zeros. You can have all great things. You can have great relationships with your family and your wife, your husband, your children, but it's all seen through the light of Krishna. It's all seen through the light of God. The reason that they do not actually derive any ultimate transcendental happiness in the personal understanding, and therefore must come down to the material platform and to take to such mundane affairs. There are many instances, especially in India, where these Mayavadi sannyasis descend to the material platform again. But a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness will never return to any sort of material platform. However alluring and attracting they may be, he always knows that no material welfare activities can be compared with the spiritual activity of Krishna consciousness. Once you have that taste, you don't want to go back. It's the sweetest taste, the higher taste of Krishna. The mystic perfections achieved by actual successful yogis are 8 in number. Anima Siddhi refers to the power by which one can become so small that he can enter into a stone. So this is mystic powers. There are many so-called mystic people who have practiced arts of black magic and white magic. I've seen some in Africa. Modern scientific improvements and also enable us to enter into stone because they provide for excavating so many subways, penetrating the hills, etc. So I live in Hawaii. The Ko'olau range is this humongous range, but the highway H3 goes right through it, and they had to drill through that massive. I mean, it's almost a mile. It's maybe not a mile, but about a half mile, quarter mile or so into this mountain onto the other side, so the highway could go through. Similarly, all the yoga siddhis are perfections are material arts. For example, in one yoga siddhi, there is the development of the power to become so light that one can float in the air or in the water. So, the levitating guru. So these are all material. People talk about, oh, I love to, astral travel, or when I dream and I'm traveling in my dream and I go to see other people who are asleep. All the stuff that the Tibetan Buddhists do is so-called spiritual. It must be really cool. Well, my spiritual master could do all that. But he was just like, it's just boring, and it's really all just subtle material energy. It's not really anything spiritual. So similarly, these kinds of mystic powers are also subtle abilities to be able to be achieved. And there's a funny story that Bhaktivedanta, actually my Srila Prabhupada has told, but I think it's because he was relating to it when Bhaktivedanta had come to India or something and he brought his disciples, and they were having some kind of conference there, and he was asked to come. But there was a very popular yogi who would come, an impersonalist yogi, and one day Bhaktivedanta Swami saw him, and he was hobbling around on a stick, and he said, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" He said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, he was levitating. He was the guru, the impersonalist was levitating 6 feet off the floor, and he forgot to close the door. Someone of his disciples forgot to close the door, and so he came in and slammed the door and startled the guru, and he went, he fell down and fell on his back. So he was like, not so great after all, I guess that's, God is not able to, he thinks he's God, but he's got a bad back. So, not, of course, making fun of people, but it is a humorous story. So this is a person who can levitate, right? This is also performed by modern scientists. So, yeah, boats can float on the water, planes can fly in the air. They are flying in the air, they're floating on the surface of the water, and they are traveling under the water, submarines, right? After comparing all these mystic yoga siddhis to materialistic perfections, just checking on the time. Sorry, I lost my place. It is found that this materialistic scientists strive for the same perfections. So actually there is no difference between a mystic perfection and a materialistic perfection. A German scholar once said that the so-called yoga perfections have already been achieved by the modern scientists, and so he was not concerned with them. He intelligently went to India to learn how he could understand his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord by means of bhakti yoga devotional service. So there are very intelligent, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada used to go talk to everyone, scientists, writers, philosophers, everyone, politicians. Just by spreading the mercy of bhakti yoga, people would understand. They would be ready to do that. They would be very intelligent scientists, and they would realize there's a limitation to empirical science that is not covered, but is covered by bhakti yoga, the great science, the great Vedic science. Of course, in the categories of mystic perfection, there are certain processes by which the material scientists have not yet been able to develop. For instance, a mystic yogi can enter into the sun planet simply by using the rays of the sunshine. This perfection is called lagima. So we have the best we've been able to do is send pods to, and then they melt and get close pictures of the sun. I don't think we've gotten into the sun yet. Similarly, a yogi can touch the moon with his finger. Although the modern astronauts go to the moon with the help of spaceship, they undergo many difficulties, whereas a person with mystic perfection can extend his hand and touch the moon with his finger. Touch the moon. Great, I touched the moon. Yeah. This city is called Prapti, or acquisition. With this Prapti city, the perfect mystic yogi can not only touch the moon planet, but he can extend his hand anywhere and take whatever he likes. So they just like be able to pull things away. He may be sitting thousands of miles away from a certain place, and if he likes, he can take fruit from a garden there. This is Prapti city. So the space-time continuum in this universe, but even now scientists are finding out very, very strange things, and they have these theories about the dimensions of the universe and how, something like this could be, very likely. It is likely, but they're just coming now to kind of understand a little bit about it. The modern scientists have manufactured nuclear weapons, which they can destroy an insignificant part of this planet. But the yogi city, well, this is a while ago. Now we have nuclear weapons that can destroy a significant part of the planet, if not all of it. By which the yogi city is known as Ashita, one can create and destroy an entire planet simply at will. Yes, there were great weapons, different weapons of water and wind. This is all talked about in the Mahabharata. Another perfection is called Vashita, and by this perfection one can bring anyone under his control. This kind of hypnotism, which is almost irresistible, sometimes it is found that a yogi who may have attained a little perfection in this Vashita mystic power comes out among people and speaks all sorts of nonsense, controls their minds, exploits them, takes their money, and then goes away. There is another mystic perfection which is known as prakamya, magic. By this prakamya power, one can achieve anything he likes. For example, one can make water enter into his eye and then come out again from within the eye. Simply by his will, he can perform such wonderful activities. The highest perfection of mystic power is called kamavashayita. This is also magic, but whereas the prakrama power acts to create wonderful effects within the scope of nature, kamavashayita permits one to contradict nature, in other words, to do the impossible. Of course, one can derive great amounts of temporary happiness by achieving such yogic materialistic perfection. So we're making this point, it's a temporary happiness. There might be some fun in it, but it's temporary. Foolishly, people who are enamored by the glimmer of modern materialistic advancement are thinking that the Krishna consciousness movement is for less intelligent men. I am better off being busy with my material comforts, maintaining a nice apartment, family, and sex life. End quote. These people do not know that at any moment they can be kicked out of their material situation. Yeah, people just like going about doing their thing, and they think, oh, I'm going to be here for a long time, and then something happens, a building falls on them, or they crash their car or something. Due to ignorance, they do not know that the real life is eternal. The temporary comforts of the body are not the goal of life. It is due only to darkness, ignorance, that people become enamored of the glimmering advancement of material comforts. So this is something like my older brother is diagnosed with cancer, and he has cancer. He had prostate cancer, like me, but I did radiation, and so far been so good. But his cancer spread, he may have 5 years. And I tried to explain to him that he should be spending more time developing a relationship with God. But his idea is like, well, I'm just gonna, go do what I want to do, travel here, travel there, do golfing, and try to enjoy more in life. And I was like, well, you may get to a point where you can't even do that anymore because you're so sick. And then what? Are you going to wait? I mean, you may come to a point where you don't even have like 2 months left. Because you get sick really quick. If you get sick with cancer and it spreads, it just goes quickly. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has therefore said that the advancement of material knowledge renders a person more foolish because it causes one to forget his real identity, real identification by its glimmer. This is doomed for him because this human form of life is meant for getting out of the material contamination. Let me read that again. This human form of life is meant for getting out of the material contamination. It's not, okay, my body is getting sick and, I only have a certain amount of time left, so I should ramp up the material consumption to try to squeeze out as much enjoyment as I can. But at the end, you don't have anything to account for it, except for it's all been past. I mean, I've done so many things in my life that have been really cool in my life, but your time is more valuable than money or anything that you can get. By advancement of material knowledge, people are becoming more and more entangled in material existence. They have no hope of being liberated from this catastrophe. Yeah, it's actually depressing existence to be in. So modern society, Western societies, more affluent societies, are extremely unhappy not because they have everything, but because it's so distracting that they're not really utilizing their life in a proper way. In the Hari Bhakti Sujodaya, it is stated that Prahlad Maharaj, a great devotee of the Lord, prayed to Nrsingadev, the half-lion, half-man incarnation, as follows: My dear Lord, I repeatedly pray unto your lotus feet that I may simply be stronger in devotional service. I simply pray that my Krishna consciousness may be more strong and steady, because happiness derived out of Krishna consciousness and devotional service is so powerful that with it one can have all the other perfections of religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and even the attainment of liberation from material existence. So those things oftentimes will just naturally come. It's not like we're trying to negate things. We're still living our life. We accept things for how they come. But Krishna will protect you. Krishna will take care of you, regardless of one way or the other. And so we don't strive, we don't hanker, we don't try to go out of our way to try to strive for more. But that's a beautiful thing, because it says that one should just pray to have a stronger faith. One should pray to have a stronger determination to be pleasing to their spiritual master and to Krishna, because from there comes life. I am not a worthy person to be in your service, my Lord, but by your grace and your mercy and the mercy of your pure devotee, you've allowed me to be in your presence and to be able to serve you. And this is what really gives happiness and faith. And although I do not practice or do it very well or very dedicated, by your mercy, you still allow me to try, And actually, a pure devotee does not aspire after any of these perfections, because the happiness derived from devotional service in Krishna consciousness is so transcendental and so unlimited that no other happiness can be compared with it. It is said that even one drop of happiness in Krishna consciousness stands beyond comparison with an ocean of happiness derived from any other activity. Thus, any person who has developed even a little quantity of pure devotional service can very easily kick out all the other kinds of happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. There was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya known as Kolavecha Sridhara, who was a very poor man. He was doing a small business of selling cups made from the leaves of plantain trees, and his income was almost nothing. Still, he was spending 50% of his small income on the worship of the Ganges, and with the other 50% he was somehow living. Lord Chaitanya once revealed himself to this confidential devotee, Kolavecha Sridhara, and offered him any opulence that he liked, but Sridhara informed the Lord that he did not want any material opulence. He was quite happy in his present position and wanted only to gain unflinching faith and devotion unto the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. That is a position of pure devotees. If they can be engaged 24 hours each day in devotional service, they do not want anything else, not even the happiness of liberation or becoming one with the Supreme. In the Narada Pancharatra, it is also said that any person who has developed even a small amount of devotional service doesn't care a fig for any kind of happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, or the 5 kinds of liberation. So we've talked about these 5 kinds of liberation. I think they're actually at the beginning of let's see here, actually, where it was. I thought I read it in here. Ah, well. Oh, I thought it was in here. Maybe it was in a different. Well, the 5 kinds of liberations: to become one with Krishna, to have the same form as Krishna, Swarup, and to have association or opulence the same as Krishna, to have the association of Krishna in the spiritual world, and to there's one more I can't remember, but I'll get it next time. So any kind of happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, liberation, or sense gratification cannot even dare to enter into the heart of a pure devotee. It is stated that as a personal attendants and maidservants of the queen follows the queen with all respect and obeisances, similarly the joys of religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation follow the devotional service of the Lord. In other words, a pure devotee does not lack any kind of happiness derived from any source. He does not want anything but service to Krishna, but even if he should have another desire, the Lord fulfills this without the devotee's asking. So, wonderful. We will continue with the last part of this chapter 1 next time. Thank you very much. Namaste.